Have you ever looked at the sky-high prices of superfoods at the grocery store and thought, there has to be a better way? Well, there absolutely is. Welcome, everyone. I am incredibly excited to guide you through this explainer on how to grow the amazing goji berry right in your very own backyard. Whether you call it the goji berry, the Chinese wolfberry, or the matrimony vine, this bright red little fruit is a total nutritional powerhouse. I mean, it is just jammed with vitamins A, C, E, and tons of antioxidants. So today we're going to break down exactly how you can cultivate this incredibly resilient superfood yourself.
Okay, before we get our hands dirty, let's dive into this by busting a really common myth. A lot of folks see those premium price tags in health food stores and just assume this exotic, nutrient-packed plant is some delicate tropical flower that's totally impossible to grow at home. But honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, it's actually an incredibly tough, adaptable shrub that's going to absolutely thrive in most home gardens.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer history behind what we're planting. These plants are native to regions like China's Ningxia province, and they boast a 4,000-year history of cultivation in traditional medicine and agriculture. 4,000 years! Because of that, they are remarkably hardy. Once they're established in your yard, they can survive winter temperatures dipping as low as -15 to -18 degrees Fahrenheit. Plus, they're highly drought tolerant. Simply put, this is a plant that is built to survive. So here is our roadmap for today's gardening journey. We're going to meet the goji berry, look at choosing and preparing your site, go over planting your goji bush, discuss watering and feeding, dive into pruning for peak production, and finally wrap up with harvesting and storing.
Section 1. Meet the goji berry, the ancient superfood. Let's kick things off with the basics of what this plant actually is and where exactly it fits into the plant kingdom.
So, here's a detail that usually surprises people. This ancient Asian superfood is actually a close relative of the everyday common tomato. Yep, they both belong to the Solanaceae or nightshade family. And this is fantastic news for us, because it means if you've got the skills to grow a tomato, you can absolutely grow goji berry. Their cultural and nutritional needs are remarkably similar. Just one quick heads up though. Unlike your soft tomato vines, mature goji berry bushes have thorns, so you're definitely going to want a trusty pair of gardening gloves on hand. Section 2. Choosing and preparing, selecting the right variety and site. Setting yourself up for a massive harvest starts way before you ever pick up a shovel. When it comes to picking a cultivar, you actually have some fantastic options. Since the goji is a relatively new crop for Western home gardens, tracking down named cultivars used to be a bit of a headache. But today, we have stellar varieties readily available, like Crimson Star, Phoenix Tears, and the Lifeberry series. And honestly, the absolute best part about these specific varieties is that they are self-fruitful. That means you only need to plant one single bush to get berries. You don't have to worry about finding a cross-pollination partner. Now, for picking the perfect spot in your yard, you really want full sun exposure. Sure, they can tolerate a little bit of shade, but if you want maximum berry production, full sun is the way to go. As for the dirt itself, they strongly prefer a neutral to slightly alkaline pH, right around 6.8 to 8.1. If your soil happens to be too acidic, you might start noticing pale or even purple leaves, but don't panic. You can easily fix that by working in a little oyster shell flour. But here is the most critical thing to remember. They need well-draining soil. Gojis absolutely despise having wet legs. If you're dealing with heavy, waterlogged clay, you've got to mix in plenty of organic matter and sand, or just opt for raised beds. Oh, and if you're working with a small patio or balcony, they do surprisingly well in containers. Just make sure your pot is at least 18 inches in diameter and holds a minimum of 5 gallons. Section 3. Planting your goji bush. Moving from bare root to the garden bed. We've got our perfect, sunny, well-draining spot all picked out, so let's talk about the actual physical process of getting this plant into the ground once the danger of spring frost has passed. Chances are, if you ordered your plant online, it's going to arrive as a bare root. Following these next steps exactly will ensure your goji's fine root system gets established quickly without drying out. First up, you'll want to soak those bare roots in a bucket of water for anywhere from 15 to 60 minutes right before planting. While that's soaking, go ahead and dig a wide hole. Make it twice as wide as the root ball so those little roots have plenty of room to spread. Next, place the crown of the plant so it's perfectly level with your soil line, backfill the dirt, and give it a really deep watering to collapse any hidden air pockets. Finally, lay down about 2 to 3 inches of organic mulch to help regulate the soil temperature and moisture. Just remember to keep that mulch pulled a few inches away from the actual stem so you don't accidentally cause it to rot. Section 4. Watering and feeding, the tomato treatment for goji berries. Once your shrub is in the ground, it does need some tailored care to really thrive, especially during that crucial first year when its root system is still pretty delicate.
Listen, when it comes to feeding goji berries, less is absolutely more. Because it's a cousin to the tomato, it definitely likes fertile soil, but hitting it with high nitrogen fertilizer is a massive mistake. High nitrogen is just going to leave you with a giant, leafy green thicket, but zero actual berries. We don't want that. Instead, if your soil actually needs a boost, just apply a balanced tomato or rose fertilizer in early spring, right as you see new growth starting. Honestly, a lot of established goji bushes perform brilliantly without any added fertilizer at all.
Okay, let's talk troubleshooting. Since they're in the tomato family, they are very susceptible to blossom end rot. If you see a black, sunken spot on the bottom of the fruit, that's what you're dealing with. Technically, it's a localized calcium deficiency, but 9 times out of 10, it's actually caused by uneven watering or extreme wet and dry cycles in your garden. The secret fix here is consistent, deep watering. A soaker hose is perfect for this. Just allow the very top of the soil to dry out slightly between drinks. Also, brace yourself to battle the local birds. They love these berries every bit as much as we do. So the minute you see those green berries forming, do yourself a favor and drape some bird netting right over the shrub.
Section 5. Pruning for peak production. Taming the 12-foot thicket. If you just leave a goji bush entirely to its own devices, it's going to sprawl, it's going to creep, and it will eventually morph into a 12-foot-tall, thorny, unmanageable mess. Proper pruning is your absolute secret weapon for getting a massive, easy-to-reach harvest. If you only remember one thing about maintenance, make it this golden rule. Fruit is born on the current year's wood. I'll say it again, current year's wood. You literally have to prune it to force new growth, because that fresh, new growth is the exact spot where your berries are going to form. During the dormant winter season, you'll want to get in there and cut out any dead or crossing branches, and shorten those long, wild lateral branches by about 6 to 18 inches. But the real magic? That happens in the summer. This summer pruning technique is called tipping, and it's a game changer. By simply pinching off the very top 2 to 3 inches of terminal growth on your branches, right when they reach about 2 feet long, you stop the plant from just shooting straight up into the sky. Instead, you're forcing it to grow sideways, creating all these lateral branches. And more lateral branches mean a gorgeous, open canopy that is absolutely loaded with fruit. You can even take a few of the strongest canes and tie them to a wooden stake to train the plant upwards. It saves a ton of space in the garden.
Section 6. Harvesting and storing, reaping the rewards of your superfood. Let's move to the absolute best part of the whole journey, the harvest. Goji berries usually begin to ripen up in early summer, roughly 35 days after full bloom, and the great news is they will keep producing right up until your first frost. Oh, and here's a really fun fact you might not know. During their first 2 years, your fresh goji berries might actually taste a little bit like a tomato. I know it sounds weird, but don't worry. By the 3rd year, they'll develop that signature sweet and tart flavor we all love, especially if they catch a light frost right before you pick them. When harvest day arrives, you really have to be delicate. You can't just aggressively rake them off the bush. You want to pick them gently by hand, pulling them slightly to the side. If you pull them straight up, you can actually tear the plant's stem and damage the growing tip. And worse, any bruising will cause these fragile little berries to leak juice, turn completely black, and spoil super fast. Treat them like delicate little jewels, all right? Now, because fresh goji berries are so incredibly fragile, they naturally have a pretty short shelf life. They're only going to last a couple of weeks in your fridge. That's exactly why you almost always see them sold dried at the grocery store. To extend their life at home, you can just lay them flat in a freezer bag. They freeze beautifully for up to 6 months without losing any of their nutritional punch. Or you can dry them out in the sun or use a dehydrator. Just make sure you keep the temperature below 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That preserves all those amazing heat-sensitive vitamins and antioxidants. Once they're dried, store them in an airtight container in a cool, dark pantry, and they'll easily last up to a year. And hey, don't overlook the leaves. You can harvest goji leaves all year round, dry them out, and brew them into a really highly nutritious tea.
So, what does this all mean for you? Given how wildly adaptable, cold-hardy, and incredibly nutritious they are, plus the huge bonus that they are self-pollinating and mostly pest-free, the goji berry is honestly the perfect addition to just about any home garden. The only question left to answer is, where exactly are you going to plant yours?
As we wrap up this explainer, I just want to remind you that every single garden is completely unique. Your specific microclimate, your native soil composition, and your local weather patterns are all going to dictate exactly what your plant needs on a day-to-day basis. Always keep an eye on your own local conditions and adjust these best practices to fit your yard. Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, happy planting.